Today on the newscast, Hamas threatens Israel with a religious war over the Temple Mount. Plus, protests continue to spread inside Iran. Get all the breaking details next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. Hamas is threatening a religious war over the Temple Mount. We've got some very important updates there, but before I get into it, real quick, if you've been tuning in here recently, you've probably heard me talk about my good friends at Meir Panim. With the Jewish high holidays just around the corner as Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets, kicks off on September 25th, we're partnering with Meir Panim to help Israel's neediest. Did you know that over 2.5 million Israelis live below the poverty line, including 1.1 million children and 1 out of every 3 Israeli Holocaust survivors? Meir Panim's restaurant-style soup kitchens are providing warm meals to these needy Israelis in a comfortable dining setting. If you want to fulfill the biblical mandate to bless Israel and help Meir Panim provide Israel's hungry with the food and care they need, just visit meirpanim.erickstakelbeck.com. Folks, it's a great cause that we truly believe in, so you will want to check that out. Well, as I mentioned, the Jewish high holidays are upon us. Between September 25th and September 27th, Israelis will observe Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets, and Hamas is also gearing up for the high holidays, but not in a positive, celebratory way, to say the least. Hamas leader Mohammed al-Zahar, speaking in Gaza today, threatened, quote, an open religious war against Israel over Israel's supposed violations, in his words, of the Temple Mount and the city of Jerusalem, which is the ancient and eternal capital of Israel and the Jewish people. Now, number one, folks, something to keep in mind here, we've seen an uptick in terrorism out of the West Bank, which we call here on the newscast Judea and Samaria, because that's what the Bible calls it. That region is the biblical heartland of the land of Israel. Nonetheless, we've seen an uptick in attack, in particular the city of Nablus in the West Bank. Also, we had a Palestinian from the West Bank murder an elderly Israeli woman just this week. She was 84 years old. She was beaten to death by this man. So an uptick in terror for sure. Israel is on high alert right now as the high holidays approach, and we see Hamas once again focusing on the Temple Mount, this Iran-backed terror group which rules Gaza with an iron fist and which is trying to increase its presence and influence in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, as I speak, has painted itself as the guardian of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which, of course, today sits atop the Temple Mount, to the point where Hamas in May 2021 instigated a war over the Temple Mount. And secondly, they tried to instigate another war this past spring, 2022. There was an increase in hostilities with Israel, of course, but ultimately, thankfully, a major war did not break out. But it seems that every time some sort of Jewish holy day, we had Passover, of course, in the spring, or now the high holidays are coming, every time some pivotal moment for Israel and the Jewish people comes up on the calendar, Hamas starts to levy threats and starts to talk about Jerusalem and the Temple Mount and how it is theirs and not Israel's. Well, newsflash, Jerusalem belonged to Israel and the Jewish people, 3,000 years ago. And the Temple Mount is where Solomon's temple and the Second Temple both stood. Nonetheless, Hamas stirring things up, using the Temple Mount as a cudgel, really, against Israel, to instigate and to incite further violence. Again, when in doubt, Hamas falls back on Jerusalem and the Temple Mount and how Israel is supposedly desecrating this site. Now, granted, the Islamic authorities control the Temple Mount, but we're seeing more and more Jews, as we've reported here in the newscast in recent months, more and more Israeli Jews, Jews from all over the world, are ascending the Temple Mount for such a time as this. Hamas does not like that, to say the least. Hey, one more thing to keep in mind when we're talking about the Temple Mount, and by the way, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We have a biblical mandate to do that, folks. And when Israel is on high alert, as the high holidays are here, now more than ever, we need to pray for God's one and only holy city. But one more quick Temple Mount update. On Monday's newscast, if you missed it, folks, you'll want to check this one out in our archives. I believe that was September 19th. We reported that 5 unblemished red heifers were recently shipped from Texas to Israel, where they arrived at Ben Gurion Airport. Why is that important? Well, these unblemished red heifers, as laid out in the law of Moses, are required for temple sacrifices. Many are saying, hey, the arrival of these red heifers, does this signal that the third temple is close, that the Messianic age is upon us? Many Jews and many in Israel and many prophecy watchers believe that is the case. So that's just another wrinkle here as we're talking Temple Mount and how that piece of real estate, the most coveted piece of real estate in the world, will increasingly have the world's attention. The Bible is very clear that a third temple will be rebuilt. We don't know when, but the Bible lays that out pretty clearly. So the arrival of these 5 unblemished red heifers has a lot of people talking and a lot of people saying, hey, where are we at on the prophetic timeline? You know where I think we are. I believe that time is short. Let's just say that. And if you are not right with God right now, if you don't know Jesus, now is the time to get to know him, folks. Don't put it off. Speaking of which, as we close here, Iran has the largest, fastest growing, I should say, Christian population in the world. Some 1 million Iranians have turned to Christ in recent years despite relentless persecution. And we have a sad example right now. 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, as I reported on Tuesday's newscast, many believe that she was killed by the Iranian regime's so-called morality police last week. The Iranian regime denies it. Her family is saying, no, we believe she was beaten to death by the morality police. But now you have Iranians taking to the streets. Those protests are growing against the regime. We have up to 17 Iranians who've been killed in these protests. We'll see where this goes. Will this grow as Ibrahim Raisi, the butcher of Tehran, as he's known, is in New York right now, where he spoke at the UN General Assembly yesterday? Keep the people of Iran in your prayers as well here, folks. Look, the Iranian regime is the problem. I'm always very clear about that here in the newscast. The Iranian government, not the Iranian people, who are the main victims of this wicked regime. One last thing to note here, Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid, as I'm coming to you on Thursday afternoon, he is also speaking right now at the UN General Assembly. And what I'm seeing come across the wires is he is declaring his support for a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinians. Now, I'm not sure how much popular support he has for that position among the people of Israel, but I will say the election is coming up on November 1st to elect potentially a new Israeli prime minister. Benjamin Netanyahu seems to be the front runner right now. He and Lapid are the top 2 contenders. Lapid, of course, is the interim prime minister right now. I'm not sure how much stroke or influence Lapid has as just a caretaker prime minister right now to lay down such a gauntlet saying we want a 2-state solution. It might be a moot point come November 1st. He may be out of office. We shall see very soon. Very interesting times in the world's most chaotic and pivotal region, the Middle East. And trust me, folks, it will affect all of us no matter where we live. Those events, those prophetic events unfolding in the Middle East and in the land of Israel right now. Hey, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Watchman Newscast. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman Newscast episodes every weekday.